Today on Building a Better Character, we go over Low Fantasy Gaming tabletop roleplay game by Pickpocket Press. All right, let's get started. We're going to be using Low Fantasy Gaming's Deluxe Edition. Still the same company, Pickpocket Press. Stephen Gradzicki is the author noted on the cover. Less magic, more grit. So for those of you not familiar with Low Fantasy Gaming, it's a system that I would say is not what would be considered OSR in nature. I would say it's maybe a nerfed down 5th edition. So Stephen took some of the things that he liked out of 5th edition and changed and tweaked some of the things that he didn't like. So we won't go into the rules because that's not what this show is about, right? It's about creating a character. So let's create a character using Low Fantasy Gaming. Let's see, we'll go through here. Some tenets we should know about even before we create a character that Stephen has laid out here. So as you can see, Low Fantasy is a tabletop built for gritty adventures in low or moderate magic settings. Simple rules, fast and engaging combat, dangerous and gritty, quasi-realistic world, treacherous magic, bold adventures, open sandbox, and a generic rule set. I would say, without getting into the nuances of the rules, the feel for Low Fantasy Gaming, in my humble opinion, is more of a D&D 5th edition, but maybe without as much magic. All right. There are 9 classes: Artificer, Barbarian, Bard, Cultist, Fighter, Monk, Ranger, Rogue, and Magic User, only 2 of which involve magic, which is the Magic User and Cultist. You'll notice there's no Cleric. You use the Cultist as a Cleric. Well, at least they're similar in nature. And we're going to roll up a first level character, and I think we're going to go with Fighter for the first one. Something relatively simple and straightforward. All right, go to how to play, round down. Creating a character. Here we go. All right. We have the character sheet on the right, which you can get free on DriveThruRPG. I have the form fillable version in PDF. We're going to start in the upper left corner where it says name and description. So make up a character name. We're going to call this character Talonor is the winner. Talonor. Then it says roll up attributes: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, willpower, perception, and charisma. It says to go to page 10 to do that. Here we go. Attributes. These are how they're determined in Low Fantasy Gaming. Each character starts with one automatic score of 15. Then what you do is roll 4d6, totaling the highest 3 dice, or simply 3d6, as it states here. Make this roll 6 times and note the results. And then it has allocate the 6 rolls and the automatic 15 to attributes as you see fit. So it's basically the 4d6 drop the lowest one. And it's an allocation system, so you're not going right down the line as you're rolling them. And right down the line, for those of you that aren't familiar with that, if you roll your first attribute, I would probably assign the 15 first, and then you would just go right down the line. Strength, dexterity, and you use those rolls. That is not the case in Low Fantasy Gaming. Now, is that to say that you couldn't do it that way? Of course not. It also notes that the humanoid maximum for any attribute is 18. All right. Then it has also alternative methods using a preset array. And then you can also, any player can use an array rolled by any other player, but with a small penalty. So 1d3 points at the GM's discretion, assigned as the player wishes. All right, so we're going to go ahead and roll up our stats. I will be using this die roller right here. As the rules mention, 46. And we already have a 15. we can assign. Look at that, it's already set up for us. 46. We'll throw those. And last but not least, 12. Not bad. Relatively average character, but with a 15 and a 17 to boot. It's pretty good. So now we're going to take these and assign them to our character. So let's go back to where we left off, creating a character. We rolled up our attributes, and it looks like we don't actually assign them by the rules. We want to choose a class, then choose skills, roll starting gold. So I guess you would say that you could assign them right now, but if you're not sure what boons or what is the core attributes for a particular class, it may behoove you to pick the class first, then assign the attributes. We know as a fighter, our core attribute's going to be strength for sure. But nonetheless, we'll want to check. Because sometimes some systems may change that. And here's the attributes and some of the bonuses. Probably look fairly familiar with some of the fantasy gamings that are out there. So the score and the particular modifier. In low fantasy, you typically roll against your attribute and want a little less than the attribute. So say, for example, we have a 17 in our strength and it's a strength check. We want to roll a d20 and roll below that 17. And of course, it outlines some of the details of each attribute. You also notice that, we'll get into this in a little bit, there's luck. But nonetheless, before we get into that, one other thing I think I find in some of the fantasy games is it's also beneficial to determine what race you select for your character class. Some races have bonuses and some have bonuses to their particular attributes. And so that may also play a role if you're trying to kind of optimize what you have for your roles. As you can see here, humans are a default race with a flair of problem solving, blah, blah, blah. Humans gain a +1 die roll to their re-roll pool. So it doesn't mention anything about their attributes. Dwarves are naturally hardy and highly resistant to arcane forces. A dwarf has advantage when resisting poison, magical healing, In addition, dwarves have 50%. Let me move that. Dwarves have 50% chance of sniffing out gold. All dwarves suffer from gold lust. It requires a will save. Dwarves have better night vision than most. Again, no attribute mention. So it looks like Steve and Pickpocket Press has really taken away if you're a dwarf, you have a higher constitution. If you're a halfling, you have a higher dexterity. So there are some boons, but it doesn't look like it plays into the attributes directly. So let's go ahead and assign these as we would. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and look at the fighter, shall we? Classes. This is the breakdown of the classes. So hit points, unique features, languages, starting gear, and gold. Okay. Here's the artificer, the barbarian. Looks like they take 2 pages. Bard. So it's a pretty decent design choice. Cultist. Like the cultist goes beyond the 2 pages. A little bit more detail within the spells and how that works. Fighter. Here we go. You are a fighter, a veteran warrior expertly trained in weapons and armor. Perhaps you are a mail-clad knight, an agile spearman, or a sharp-eyed bowman. Fighters are versatile masters of all weapons, switching between armaments and fighting styles to best beat the foe at hand. Fighter is the most heavily armed and armored adventurer in the game. You are comfortable in the thick of battle, relying on brawn, steel, and superior skill to win the day. Of course you are. Key attributes, strength and or dexterity. So you can be big Brutus strength fighter, or you could be nimble dexterous fighter. So I guess it depends on what kind of build we want to go to. We're going to go with the standard sword and board, so we're going to pick strength as our primary key attribute. Hit points, 1d5 plus 5, plus con bonus, if any, per level, up to 9th level. And armor and shields, any weapons, any skills, and some of the little nuances of each class. With the fighter, you get adaptable first level. Also, you'll see fighter attack bonus, level 1 through 12, and then the appropriate bonus per, which obviously differs from class to class. Talks about adaptable, and we'll get to that. So why don't we just get into assigning our skills, shall we? Or our attributes. So score, strength, it's got to be 17. Dexterity, well, we're going to go, remember, we do have a 15 that we can assign. So why don't we go, I'm going to skip to 15 and put that in the Constitution. We want a sturdy fighter. And then we're going to go with 14 for dexterity. Intelligence, he's a fighter. We're going to keep him at 11. And let's see, willpower, we will put at 13. Perception, 12. Charisma, 12. And I think we used them all up. Now what we can do is put in the modifiers appropriately. So this spreadsheet, or this sheet does not auto-calculate. So strength, we have a modifier of 3. Whoop. Yeah, and the tab doesn't work on this character sheet correctly, but that's not to say that it's not my reader. Dexterity at a 14. That's a +1. Constitution at 15 at a +2. Intelligence 11, 0. Willpower at 13 is a +1. Perception at a 12 is a 0. And then obviously charisma is a 0. Okay. So we have our attributes. Choose a class, which we kind of already done, but we'll fill it up here in the upper right. You can see fighter. Choose skills. So we'll go to page 49. Skills. Each adventurer begins the game with a number of skills as outlined in the class descriptions. Adventurers also gain an additional skill at 4th and 8th level. Skills grant a +1 bonus on any related attribute checks. Modified attributes are capped at a maximum of 18 and grant access to the adventurer's reroll pool on a failed check. The various skills and typical related attributes are outlined in the table on page 50. So yeah, skilled and unskilled. Talks about the differences on handling those. So what we will do, and here's a list of the skills and what they mean. And of course the usual attribute that's assigned to it or referenced. That's it, one page. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Did I count those correctly? But we're going to go back to the fighter because it has the skills listed right here. So we get on our sheet here, we're going to scroll down a little bit in the lower right here. Skills, leadership, athletics, +4 of the following. Well, we got to go probably with definitely stealth. And let's see, detection. Gather information. We want ours to be somewhat connected. Maybe get some information when he or she is in town. And then the last one, but not least, I think we're going to go with apothecary. Now, without getting into a ton of the rules or the setting and some of the examples, as low fantasy gaming, if we want to check what apothecary gets us: first aid, injury recovery, poisons, biology, and disease, which is based off of intelligence. Now, intelligence isn't our strongest attribute, but nonetheless, apothecary will give us some first aid ability. So healing in low fantasy gaming isn't as prevalent as in some other popular fantasy games in the marketplace. So it's probably behoove us to at least, patch up a wound if we need to, keep from bleeding out, something along those lines. All right. So I should even stipulate. So what we picked and what it means to you: leadership, inspiration, morale, intimidation, teaching, having orders obeyed, based off of charisma. Athletics, running, climbing, swimming, jumping, tests of physical power, including grappling, breaking down a door, knocking an enemy prone, pushing a foe backwards, and so on. Strength or con. Now, I should also stipulate, in low fantasy gaming, if you have the skill, you can actually roll it, and if you fail, if you have the skill, you are allowed to re-roll it. If you do not have the skill in low fantasy, you can still attempt to do something using a skill that you don't have, but you don't have the option to re-roll, which is pretty nice, and it kind of prevents the skill piling thing. All right. What else do we have? Stealth, dexterity based, hiding and moving silently, often opposed by perception/detection. We also have detection, telling convincing lies, impersonations, making and using disguises and forgeries, often opposed by intelligence insight. Gather information, rumor hunting, rumor mongering, canvassing for witnesses or a missing person or item, extended researching. So just even with some of these skills, you're not getting like the dumb fighter. He or she obviously has some ability to do things that aren't, smash their enemy, take their loot. Gather information, I just mentioned. Apothecary, I mentioned. All right, so we have our skills. Now, it should be pick a race. Choose skills, create a short background and or role for starting bonds. Short background or role. Page 51. Party bonds. For quick and easy party cohesion, it is recommended that each player generate one or more bonds with their fellow adventurers. Roll twice on the table below and choose the most appropriate and or fun connection. The examples provided are for inspiration and should be modified to suit your campaign. They are primarily in the vein of prior professions or significant past events, but could easily be rejigged as ongoing concerns. I imagine if a player wanted to actually pick from this list, it would be up to your game master to allow that as well. So we are going to roll twice on the table below and choose the most appropriate. That's on a scale 1 to 20. Of course, a 1. Pirates or sailors on the notorious galley Green Devil under the command of Captain Scasali. There is a background and description, but we're going to put it in the notes regardless. All right. And then the sixth step says roll starting gold on page 15 and buy starting equipment on page 53, or gain your class gear pack if your game master is using this option. So gear packs are kind of the pre-configured packages, and you pick one and it comes with a certain amount of items. It kind of speeds up equipping your character, which I think is pretty handy. I always remember growing up playing Dungeons and Dragons and always picking the same exact stuff every time I equipped a character. There'd be some type of light source, probably a candle or a series of torches, flint and steel, sack, belt pouch, etc., etc. And it was always the same type of kind of loadout. So the game packs and things of that nature really make things simple and sometimes unique, right? A pack for a thief versus a fighter might be just a little bit different. And frankly, they would differ when I was a kid too, right? I'd have to make sure I had thieves' tools and picks and tools when I was playing a thief, but I didn't necessarily need them when I was a fighter. So it just kind of speeds things up that way. So let's go to page 15. And in the lower right corner of page 15, we have starting gear and gold. Each character starts the game with 3d6 times 10 gold pieces, except for fighters who start with 5d6 times 10. This gold may be spent on items from the equipment chapter or similar items with the GM's approval. Any unspent gold is retained to spend during the game. Alternatively, for speedier equipment section, the GM might allow to choose a gear pack, as I mentioned. So, the fighter gets 5d6 times 10. I would probably think it has to do with maybe their ability to get hired quickly to do labor-intensive work. Maybe it's their resourcefulness. Maybe they get into fights and it's a paid bout and they earn their money from fighting. You know, could be anything. So we're going to go with 5d6, 26 times 10. So 260 gold. To 260 gold. GP. So we're going to pick human. We're just going to fill that in our top of our character sheet. We're going to go level 1. Now, I haven't forgotten about our gold pieces and equipping our human. So what we're going to do, go to page 56. 56, gear packs. For convenience, class-based gear packs are provided below to speed starting equipment choice. Each PC also receives 1 melee weapon, 1 armor, 1 shield, if available to that class, and 1d6 gold pieces left over. Note that gear packs are more generous than standard starting gold. Gear packs might also be useful for improvised NPC adventures or loot. You can choose the appropriate class pack or roll 1d10 if 10 GM's choice or carry loot instead. In other words, if you roll a 10, it's the GM's choice because it goes up to 9 on this table. As a fighter, number 5, that's what we're going to pick. We're just going to pick it. So what we get is backpack. Let's see. Coin pouch. Bedroll. Rations. That's 1 week. Water skin. 1d6 torches. 5 torches. Woot woot. Tinderbox. Climbing gear. 1d6 iron spikes. Look at that, I'm on fire. 6 iron spikes. 50 feet of rope. Hemp rope. Whetstone. And secondary weapon. And 1 melee weapon. Let's see, so we get 1 armor, 1 melee weapon, and 1 shield if available to the class. And then 1d6 leftover gold pieces. So we'll just roll 1d6 again. 2. So after it's all done and said, we are going to be down to 2 gold pieces. I think we're going to go with a sword. Longsword, bastard sword, or rapier. So we'll go with a longsword, 1d8 damage, 15 gold, which we don't have to keep track of in this in the way that we're building this character. So weapon, longsword. To hit is going to be based off our strength bonus, and our damage is going to be +1 damage if used two-handed, On a natural 19 to hit roll, you disarm your foe. Rapier gains +1 bonus on interception checks. So ours is going to be 1d8. Properties, which we're not going to include because that would include some of these things. Adamantine, cold iron, mithril, silver, some of those details. We also get armor. This, I'm sure, just because it says armor doesn't mean you get to pick whatever. I'm sure this is going to be at the GM's discretion. So we'll play it medium, middle of the road, medium armors. We will go with chain shirt. That will give us an AC of +3. We'll put that here. 3. -2 penalty on move silently and swim checks. Shield, +1, 20 gold pieces. See rules for shields. Above, in addition to providing +1, shield may be used to negate a single directional attack, be it a sword strike, lightning bolt, or dragon bite. To use this ability, a player simply declares that the shield negates the hit or damage. The shield cannot be used again in this manner until it is repaired. A task of several hours requiring materials, the damage shield continues to provide +1 AC. In some instances, the GM might rule that a luck check is required to avoid destruction of the shield or to preserve the +1 AC bonus until repaired. We're not going to carry a shield. It's kind of an easy cop-out, but, we'll keep the shield at bay. But if we wanted to, that's how it would work. So basically, we can opt to use the shield on one major attack and basically splinter it to bits, which is a pretty cool mechanic. All right. So I think besides the one thing we forgot to put in as a fighter is our attack bonus. So at level 1 is 1. So our to hit is going to be +4. We are also adaptable, so we're going to put that down here in the class abilities and skills. What does it mean to be adaptable? Your combat expertise allows you to switch weapons and fighting styles at a moment's notice. At first level, the fighter knows a number of styles equal to his strength modifier. Each level thereafter, he learns one additional style, and if desired, may substitute one known style for another. So we get 3 styles at first level. Choose one of your styles to be your default style. When you gain a level, you may substitute your default style for another if you wish. You begin an adventure with 1 use of this ability per level. You may gain expended uses by taking short or long rests. You gain the benefits of your default style at all times, except as noted below. When you use adaptable, choose one of your known styles and substitute it for your default style until the end of combat. You may use adaptable multiple times during the same combat if you wish. You may revert to your original default style at any time during your turn. No action does not expend a use of adaptable. Using adaptable is part of your normal action, and you sheath, stow, and ready armaments, including a shield at no action cost. And that has some of these styles listed. An example, so Karunkor has two-hander default style and also knows Protector and Ranged. He automatically begins a battle with two-hander. Advantage on damage rolls with his great axe, but partway through expends 1 use of adaptable to switch to Protector, gaining shield and rescue benefits instead of advantage on damage rolls. A few rounds later, Karunkor reverts back to two-hander style. No action, no adaptable use to finish off the final enemy. It's pretty cool. It's basic, obviously different fighting styles, and you can adapt to your situation, which is kind of nice. So if you're a fighter, it kind of reminds me of Star Wars Jedi, and they have different Jedi forms. And it's almost as if you're changing your form based on the enemy you're attacking, or maybe it's the way that they're blocking your moves, and therefore you have to adjust your style to overcome those blocks. So kind of neat that way. So for our fighter, I think we're just going to pick Charger. When you take the charge action, enemies do not gain advantage on their attacks against you, and if you hit, the target must make a luck, strength save, or be knocked prone or pushed up to 10 feet. We're not a ranged fighter, so we will pick two-hander. Two-hander. If you use a melee weapon two-handed, you gain advantage when rolling damage. Protector. You automatically succeed on dex checks to trigger rescue exploits, and shields grant you +2. And we should note, it is ascending armor class. We have a 13 because the base is 10. So I kind of like, you could do opportunist, protector, rear guard, or even unarmed. Kind of like unarmed. You never know. Get into a bar fight. Your unarmed attacks cause 1d6 damage instead of 1d2. On a natural 19, you may grab or disarm your foe. So imagine just like taking your foe, knocking them down with your sword, and eventually you just grab them with your hand and punch them in the face. Deadly Strikes, first level, is another piece we get as a fighter. Your weapon's expertise helps you land crippling blows. Your weapon attacks cause critical hits on a natural 20 roll, on a 1d20 roll of 19 to 20. In addition, if your weapon causes a special effect on a natural 19, the effect also occurs on a natural 20, which is pretty nice. Yes. And so armor class is your armor plus your dex. Base 10. So AC +3 plus our dex. We have an AC of 14. We did not roll hit points. So let's go back to fighter. 1d5 plus 5. So we rolled a 4 on load. We'll roll it again. Just 1d5. Oh, that's fantastic. A 1. So we're at 6 hit points, which is fine. Con bonus, actually, plus our constitution makes it 8. So even on a 1 roll, we still get a pretty decent amount of hit points at first level. Con bonus, +2. I think, for the most part, let's see if we can find luck. Luck. You don't find this in too many fantasy role-playing games. Some of them have it, and it may be used differently. Dungeon Crawl Classics also has a luck attribute. So luck in low fantasy gaming, every adventure has a special 8th attribute called luck. It's kind of the fate and good fortune. Also reflects the character's community experience dealing with perilous hazards and dangers. There are 2 kinds of luck rolls, luck saves and luck checks. Luck saves are for resisting serious adverse effects such as spells, traps, special monsters. Luck saves are made in response to an attack or active danger as opposed to an action you instigate, which are generally covered by attribute checks. Luck checks are primarily for major exploits, rescues, and party retreats, which rely on the luck resource to pull off. Starting luck. At the start of an adventure, a character's luck attribute is equal to 10 plus half their level round up. So we have an 11. To make a luck roll 1d20 and apply any modifiers. If the result is equal to or less than the current luck attribute, the test is successful. Note that a character's reroll pool, page 49, is available for all luck rolls. A successful luck roll means the character avoids the threat or performs the intended martial exploit. A luck check or save may be modified by an attribute bonus or penalty. So as you can tell, once you use luck, it actually goes down, which makes it harder for you to succeed. So as the adventure continues, your luck is not in your favor, usually. So that's a little bit about luck. And then it returns at a rate of 1 point per long rest. And long rests in low fantasy gaming is a longer time. It's like days and weeks at a time, not, an overnight. So let's go to page 49. Reroll pool. If an adventurer fails an attribute check, but has a relevant skill, or possibly background, the player may choose to reroll. Each adventure begins an adventure with 1 reroll pool die per level. You may regain expended dice by taking short or long rests. The reroll pool may only be accessed once per attempted action. If advantage or disadvantage applies to the check, the reroll pool allows only 1 die to be rerolled. So reroll pool dice may also be used for all luck rolls, short rest recoveries, and all dead or mostly dead tests. So all dead or mostly dead tests have to do with healing. I won't get into details around that because we're making a character and not going into the rules of the game necessarily. Backgrounds. In addition to skills, players may choose or create a themed background or profession for their adventurer. If an action has a close connection with a character's background but isn't a recognized skill, the adventurer's reroll pool may be available for that task. For example, a merchant background might allow a reroll on an intelligence check to appraise treasure, or a builder background might permit an intelligence reroll to identify weak points on a stone walkway. So backgrounds. With ours, we'll just say we are brawler. Could even say a street fighter if we wanted to, but something we're just kind of going with the class. And I think if we look at everything on our character sheet, everything's been filled in. And we're pretty much done. Although I don't know why our armor class is 146. Should be 14. All right, so that wraps up the fighter character creation in low fantasy gaming. Hope you enjoyed it. It's our first go around, so more to come. We'll have links to the game down below, as well as a link to the character sheet that we used. I encourage you to go and check out Low Fantasy Gaming. They actually have the non-deluxe version for free on DriveThruRPG. So the deluxe version comes with a few more options, but you can get the free PDF at DriveThru for the non-deluxe, and it'll do the trick for you. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, all the good stuff that you do on YouTube. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you the next time we create a new player character. We'll see you next time on building a player character. We'll see you next time on building a role-playing game character. We'll see you next time on... Thanks for tuning in to RPG Character Creation. See you on the next one.